The Milwaukee Bucks, a team like no other, one of the best teams in the East. Giannis, with a wingspan that is 45 feet long, but he can't shoot the basketball. Yet one of the best players in the NBA. The Pacers, one of the most underrated teams in the NBA. The Cleveland Cavaliers have a young point guard in Colin Sexton, so they said, fuck it, let's draft another one. You can see how LeBron carried this sorry-ass team. It's going to be a rough year for them. The Chicago Bulls would need more players on the court than the trainer's room. But in all reality, they just need Michael Jordan back. And the Detroit Pistons are relying on Andre Drummond's free throws and Blake Griffin's health. It is going to be a long year for a lot of these teams in this division. But there is hope. Excuse me, my allergies decided to viciously attack me the last 4 days, so I kind of sound like shit. The intro, I liked it. It wasn't as energetic as the other ones, but I definitely got some cool stuff planned for the future. But we're going to be talking about the Central Division in the Eastern Conference today, which is made up of some good teams and some teams that are going to have a long, long season. Generally, we're going to start with the Milwaukee Bucks, and I believe, if to my knowledge, they won the East last year. They just cracked 60 wins. Giannis is great. We all know this. He's one of the most unguardable players in 2K and on the court. He needs to develop a shot. As great as he is, his ability to drive in, play defense, all those kind of things, if he had a shot, Giannis could be easily one of the best players in the NBA, which he is already. But they're going to have Giannis obviously coming back, a freakish athlete, and they're going to elevate them to great things. The luxury tax penalty was hit them last year. They did have to let Malcolm, and that's a key loss for them because he was a big part of this Milwaukee Bucks team. They did sign Wesley Matthews for a league minimum, and I don't know why, but they said, we have Brook Lopez already, so let's sign Robin Lopez. I don't think that was really a good idea. Robin Lopez is clearly leaps and bounds below Brook Lopez, and the funniest part about this is that he's on the bench. So imagine being at the dinner table and saying, well, I start and you're on the bench. So they're going to be adding the second Lopez brother to their starting five as they have Brook at the center position. Their lineup as it reads is Eric Bledsoe at point guard, Wesley Matthews at shooting guard, Chris Middleton at small, Giannis at power, and Brook Lopez at center. But obviously that's going to, I don't know if Giannis is going to play power the whole year. I'm sure they could switch him with small forward and whatnot. But this Bucks team, mainly, they only lost Malcolm Brogdon. They did sign a couple of players, and the core as itself is actually a very good team. So I don't really expect them to fall off too much. If not, they're going to be just as good, if not better. But I'm going to say that they're maybe not going to have 60 wins this upcoming season, somewhere in the 50s, I'd say. I don't think they're going to take the Eastern Conference. I would say that I have them probably taking the second seed in the Eastern Conference, but they definitely will dominate this division for the most part because there's no legitimate threats in this Central Division to the Bucks except for the Pacers. And even the Pacers aren't quite on the Milwaukee Bucks level. So I would say probably have this team at your second seed in the Eastern Conference, but they are going to have a very dominating year, and they're going to be right in the thick of things in the playoffs, and they could have a NBA in the playoffs, but they could have an NBA Finals appearance swing around them. But the 76ers are going to be probably battling with them for that as well. So they could get first seed, but I'm going with the second seed in the Eastern Conference for the Milwaukee Bucks. Follow the Indiana Pacers. They have got to be one of the best teams in the NBA. They are not maybe in that elite category, but they're knocking on the door of an elite team. They're a playoff team every season, and they will be this year as well. I think the East is going to get a lot more competitive this year, generally speaking. But Oladipo's coming back from that injury, and you could see that even though they remained a good team without him, that he was a key piece that they really missed come the playoff time and such, because because Oladipo was really leading this Pacers team into something great. To have Miles Turner, he's pretty much an all-star at this point, and he's going to be knocking on it as well. Domantas Sabonis as well, and Thaddeus Young, and they also got Brogdon as well. They do have a very great underrated team. Darren Collison to decide to retire as well, and Tyreek Evans is battling that suspension. So this Pacers team has, I think, a starting five that can go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams in the NBA. TJ Warren was also added to this team, and Jeremy Lamb as well, so that's going to boost them, and I think they're going to be a great shooting team. They have a lot of players that can shoot great. Some of you may see where I rank them in the seeding to be a little bit low. I do have them 5th seed in the East, but I just think that, if you figure Philly and Milwaukee are your top dogs, and then the next teams are either Brooklyn or Boston, and whatever vice versa that is, the next opening for Indiana would be the fifth seed. And I think that that's your safe bet, is to say that Indiana's going to get the fifth seed as long as they stay healthy. But I do think they're going to be better this year. They may even be knocking around 50 wins. This team is really underrated, and they're due one of these years to really put the league on notice. But I'm going to say fifth seed just because there's so much uh, that has changed in the Eastern Conference in the offseason. You have Brogdon is going to be your point guard. You have Oladipo at your shooting guard. T.J. Warren is your small forward. Sabonis as your power forward, and Miles Turner as your center. So those are some really good names for this Indiana Pacer team. And for me, they're going fifth seed. But I wouldn't even be surprised if they were able to bump Brooklyn or Boston to a lower seed. But I do expect Boston to be a lot better than people think this year. And Brooklyn, by default, is good with the players that they have. The Pistons could easily become a train wreck this season. I think that we all know that if they were in the Western Conference, they wouldn't be knocking on the 7th or 8th seed from the playoffs. But reality of it is they do have Andre Drummond. He's probably the best rebounding center in the league. He has. They said, from what I know, that he's improved his free throws in the offseason, and that's something that they really need to do because his free throws are garbage, and a lot of big men do not have free throws. Their offseason was limited. They had limited money to work with. They have Derrick Rose coming over, and Derrick Rose really didn't break out after that post-injury until that year in Minnesota. But they have him coming on a 2-year, $15 million deal, and for some reason I think that he's going to fit really well into this Detroit Pistons team. Um, Mike Beasley is getting a vet's minimum as well. They did trade for Tony Snell, and they did upgrade their roster, so they made quite a few moves in free agency as well. And I think that the Pistons could make the playoffs just as easy as they could miss them. If you really look at their starting five, you have Reggie Jackson at point guard, you have Bruce Brown at shooting guard, you have Tony Snell at small forward, and then of course you have your dominant players on the team, Blake Griffin at power and Andre Drummond at center. But the problem is that Blake Griffin, you can't get a healthy year out of him. Blake Griffin is someone that is very injury plagued, and I'm not going to say he's a head case, but he comes off as a bit of a dick. I actually was able to meet him at a convention in New York about 6-7 years back, and he was cool with us. But like I said, he's has a little bit of a temper, and I think we all know that. But they're going to rely on him to stay healthy. I think Blake Griffin, as great as he was in the Clippers, he elevated his game once he went to Detroit. He was averaging more points per game. He was better just in general, and Andre Drummond as well. He's not an offensive player, but he's one of the better defensive players in the league. And having someone that can rebound the ball, especially on defense, is so crucial, and offense as well. And it gives your team second chances, so they know that if they miss their shots, that they have a chance to get the ball back. But in all reality, I'd say, if I put the Knicks in the playoffs and I put them at 8 seed, I have to give the Pistons the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be better. So I would say the 7th seed is probably a good prediction for the Detroit Pistons, just because it's hard to put them below the Knicks when, in theory, even though they're not that great of a team, they are better than the Knicks. So I think that the safe bet would be to say the 7th seed for the Detroit Pistons in this situation. So that's where I'm going with. The team that's going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year is probably going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. You really started to see that after LeBron took them to the finals, sorry-ass team that they were. The next season they had, I want to say, 19 wins. There's nobody that really jumps out on this starting five when I get to that. They're hopeless without LeBron, and that's something that they've showed. I mean, they could get slightly better, but what is the ceiling for this Cleveland Cavaliers team? My guess is as good as yours, but I think Colin Sexton was a player that they're liking, and I think that that was a bonus for this Cleveland team, and I think that he performed well. Before, for whatever reason, they decided to draft another point guard in Darius Garland, and I don't know why they did that. I'm not saying that he won't be good, but it doesn't really add too much to it. And there's a lot of rumors that throughout this season or early on that Kevin Love could be traded. He's going toward the last years of his contract with this Cleveland team, and Kevin Love is really one of the sole remaining players. Yes, you have Tristan Thompson as well, but Tristan Thompson doesn't do anything except make headlines for the wrong reason. So they're starting five. I'm going to assume that when the year starts, they're going to go with Colin Sexton, and or Darius Garland, and if they do Darius Garland, that they're going to have Sexton at the shooting guard spot, City Osman as small forward, Kevin Love at power forward. Don't think that's going to last the whole season, and Tristan Thompson at center. But this Cleveland team doesn't really have much to really talk about. They drafted Darius Garland, and that's really it. There's not too much to talk about the Cleveland team. I still think they're going to be atrocious this year. They might have a little bit of team chemistry now to be a little bit better. But just in general, there's not too much coming from this Cleveland team. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to miss. They're probably going to be somewhere around 11 or 12 seed in the East. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the East. I don't think we've gotten to that yet. That's actually the next division. But there's nothing that sticks out, and they're just a boring team to me. There's nothing. The only thing I feel like they have going for them is the fact that they're in a big city like Cleveland. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. Like, I want to be so energetic and excited, but the Cleveland Cavaliers just suck that out of me. So, yeah. Last team in the Eastern Conference Central Division is the Chicago Bulls. And this team needs Michael Jordan. Not as a coach, not as a president. They need him as a player. Because they are nowhere near as bad as the Cavaliers, and there's a lot more upside to them. But the Chicago Bulls are also a team that they don't know what the hell's going on. They had a lot of injuries last year. They did have some breakout stars. I think Lauri Markkanen is going to be very good for the Bulls, and I think that's one of the upstarts that the Chicago Bulls do have. But as far as generally speaking goes, it is just there's really not a lot to talk about here. They kind of had a quiet offseason. Markkanen is definitely the team leader. They did draft Kobe White, and that's someone that they're looking for. I think they had it below. I don't know. I think they had the 7th pick. I don't know exactly. They did sign Luke Cornett, and he was a good player for the bench when the Knicks did have him. Point guard battle. There's a lot of different point guards that can come here. You got, Satoransky, Chris Dunn, or Kobe White that just got drafted. So the point guards are all up for mix as well. They're not going to make the playoffs. There's just way too much transition and just a clusterfuck of things going on here for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that they could be better than last year. They might get that 9th or 10th seed and hover around that 8th seed. But I think the Knicks could beat them out if we develop the way that we should have. And R.J. Barrett is what he has been advertised. There's way too much transition and change over this offseason, even though they didn't make a lot of moves for this Bulls team to really nail it down and have high expectations. You do have Satoransky, Chris Dunn, or Kobe White. They don't know who they're really going with at point guard yet. They do have one of the league's best dunkers who's got to be a little bit more consistent. Zach LaVine is going to be their shooting guard. Otto Porter Jr. at small. Markkanen, who is their leader, at power forward. And Wendell Carter Jr. at center. So a team that has a lot of transition, and I just generally don't see them being in the mix here. They could really break out and surprise you depending on what these new players or whatever system that the Chicago Bulls go to set. But generally, this division is not as exciting. I didn't have the energy I had in the Knicks one. I love to do that because the Knicks are such a huge talking point, and I can't wait till I get to the Western Conference and I can really amp up the energy. Basically because these allergies, too, have just been kicking my ass. So that's really all there is in this. Milwaukee Bucks should take this division for sure, and they're a team that you could see in the NBA Finals. Indiana Pacers are going to be great, too. I'm telling you, watch for them to break out. That's really all it is for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. And we're going to have probably the NFL Week 4 review come up next. And I love doing those intros. That should be fun as well. But that's really it. Thanks for watching.